Hello, my cuties. It has been a minute since I've made a video. Um, I recently had to move, and my lovely friend Star Heavenly was kicked out of their home. And I will link down a video, just kind of their little update video. But basically, yeah, they were homeless for about a month. They had to move to Oregon, and it was not great. We were like rushing against time to get an apartment and all that good stuff, but we're safe, we're fine, we're in our new apartment. I still haven't unpacked all my stuff. My room is a mess, so that's really cool. The other reasoning, I guess, is like, not just moving, but like this video I feel like is pretty hard for me to record. I think it needs to be done, it needs to be talked about, but I feel like there's a lot of area where I can say something wrong. So before I get into this, let me just say a few things. One, big trigger warning, just the biggest trigger warning I could ever slap on this bad boy. So please, if you are not prepared to hear a story that involves going to a mental hospital, self-harm, talk of an eating disorder and things like that, please do not watch this. I don't want to make anybody have a panic attack or anything like that. Number two, just because I had a bad experience doesn't mean that all mental hospitals are bad. In fact, if you are going through something similar, please take this as a warning to look for good mental hospitals and try to do your research. My family didn't do their research prior, and we got sent to a really bad one that it took all of my dad's money, and they did nothing. They did not help me. So when I was, I believe, 16 is when this happened. For reference, my memory is a little foggy between the ages of 16 to 18, and I think that's just because of all of the really bad things that kept happening around that time, between the mental hospital, the surgery, the going to Mayo Clinic. Like, there's so much that happened around this time, and a lot of details tend to get kind of lost in the fog just because it was a genuinely horribly traumatizing part of my life that I want to forget, but I shouldn't forget. I need to go through these memories and remember them and accept them. So when I was around 16, I wasn't going to school for a while. I just wasn't. I was miserable. I was depressed. And I felt like the world was just caving in on me. Not only that, but I was constantly sick. Every time I would go to school, I would be in pain and agony, and it was awful. Everything sucked. I was also friends with some really, really toxic people at the time that only perpetuated my mental illness and made me feel worse and worse and worse. It sucked. And they were not good people. So I remember it so clearly on this day, however. I was sitting in bed. I was drawing. My mom came in and said I had a doctor's appointment. This was very common for me. I never knew when I had doctor's appointments. She would just take me to it. So nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I remember very specifically turning my computer on sleep mode because I thought I was going to the doctor. I got in the car and we were driving there, and suddenly we kept going and going and going, and this was this mental hospital that was like out in the middle of nowhere. And we got there, my dad and my grandma were there, and nobody really told me what was going on, which, for one, if you're a parent watching this, if you're going to send your kid to a mental hospital, have a sit down and talk to them, because that genuinely traumatized me. It still affects me to this day, where I don't want to tell people how I actually feel because I'm scared they're going to send me away. I'm going to get in a car one day and I'm just going to be in a mental hospital again. It was terrifying. They didn't tell me anything. I get there and immediately the nurses are searching me. They're searching my body. They publicly shame me, essentially, in front of my parents, because once they see the scars on my legs, they show my family and they're like, look at what your child has done. My family's crying. I had to strip down and be naked for the nurses to check every inch of my body, which sucked. I remember at the time I would post online about how I was feeling mentally, and now I don't know. am scared to do it because my family printed out journals that I made on DeviantArt and were like, look at what you said online. Look at all these things you said. And I didn't know what to do with it. I lied. I said no. I thought I had that. I didn't know what I was going through. But the reality was that I knew exactly what was wrong with me and what I needed to do to improve it. But it was a process, and my family took that away from me. I wasn't allowed to wear a hoodie. All of my comfort clothes were taken from me, so that was cool. And this mental hospital was creepy. It was so creepy. And I've been in a lot of hospitals over the years, and the nurses are usually so warm and kind, and the beds are good, and they just want to take care of you. Here, the beds genuinely bruised me. They were this like thick, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, you know when you're like at a gym and there's like those mats that you can fall onto? It was like that. It was exactly like that, but a bed. I remember going up to the nurse that night and crying and asking to go home. I don't really let people see me cry. It's a problem that I have. So having a breakdown and letting this nurse see me cry was this giant moment of vulnerability. She did not care. She was like, oh, honey, I'm sorry. Just go lay back down. You're here. And like, no comfort. Nothing. She did not care. What she should have done is she should have taken me aside, like comforted me, talked me through these emotions, and we could have figured out a way to make me feel less scared and alone. She did not. She didn't care. She was just like, whatever, go back to bed. I went back to bed and cried myself to sleep. I was miserable. I felt defeated. And I felt so alone. They would force us to wake up, I think, at 5 or 6 in the morning, and our bedtime was around 9 p.m., and it takes me usually around 2 hours to fall asleep, and I could not sleep on those beds. It was so painful. And I even asked for like some kind of like padding, and they gave me a little bit of extra padding to put on the bed, and it did not help. My back was completely covered in bruises, and they did not care. They could have cared less. I was just a way for them to make money. One of my biggest gripes about going there, I think, and I forgot about this until I like mentioned it with some friends, and I like had like a flashback sequence. It was awful. Was that the genders there were not separated. And yes, I'm a trans man, but I feel like at the time it would have been significantly safer for them to divide us by, I guess, sex, so that the girls and the men are completely separated. Because I was there and I kept getting hit on constantly, and I had a lot of trauma with that at the time, between friends and pedophiles on the internet and just like being really sexualized online. It's a huge reason I don't like to show my face on the internet. So sitting there and having multiple guys try to hit on me at a mental hospital. Really? I remember during a group therapy session, I mentioned that I was a man, and I tried really hard to talk about it. And this was, I think 2013, I want to say. In the Midwest, we were not, as aware of trans stuff as we are in 2020. And the therapist lady really tried to like understand and listen to me, but like, good God, like the guys started like really like hammering down, flirting on me after that. Like, they were like, oh, so like you're a boy, so like you're a cute boy, oh, so like what if I made you a girl though? What if you were a girl? And it was just awful. They wouldn't stop. One of them was like, yeah, give me your Facebook so that when I'm out of here we can go on a date. And this guy was interesting, to say the least. I'm not sure what exactly was going on with him, but I know for a fact he had an issue with attention seeking, and he would just lie all the time. like constantly, like things that made no sense. He was like, yeah, actually I'm a really good artist. And it's like, oh, draw something. And he's like, sure. And then you start drawing something and he's like, actually I don't want to draw right now. He would actively like be like, yeah, I think tonight I'm gonna throw like a tantrum so that they have to like restrain me because I'd be cool. Like it was insanity. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? I don't understand. And like to this day I don't like causing a scene. I would rather like die on the side of the road and nobody notice than like cause a scene and get help. It's bad. So seeing this guy just purposely have mental breakdowns because he wanted the attention from it was insanity, and he should not have been in our group. One of the biggest things that they had a big rule of was like no physical like touching for anybody, and they also said don't make friends, which is crazy. So what all the girls I remember specifically like basically grouped together after they started flirting with me, and this one big buff girl that was there who was the person I slept with. At first she was terrifying and she did not like me, but the minute like the guys started like sexually harassing me, she was on them and was very good at protecting me, so that was really nice of her. And we all just kind of like formed a little clique, I guess, and would talk to each other. I was genuinely doing a way better job than the nurses were at comforting these poor girls that were having mental breakdowns and crying. I remember when I got there, my family was like, yeah, they need like organic food and stuff, because I was on an organic diet at the time to see if that would help my stomach and if I could digest food again. And I couldn't have dairy, I couldn't have like processed foods and things like that, and they were like, yep, sure, and they did not continue with that. They gave me a baked potato one day because that's literally all they had. Then I went to the lunchroom and they couldn't give me anything really. Like all I had was processed food. I was constipated for a week because the food made me sick, and if I threw up, then they would immediately put me back on like, they would put me on like bulimia watch, because I was already on anorexic watch. So I couldn't be in the bathroom for more than, I think, 5 minutes. And after that, they would like come in and start knocking and be like, get out. You know, if you need to poo, you can't. That's impossible. It's literally impossible. So that was cool. Couldn't use the bathroom. And not only that, but I think it was the second day I was there that they started putting me on more of an anorexic watch for some reason. I don't know. But they were giving me medications that I knew made me sick, and I told them that, and I refused to take them. They would hand me them, I would not. I absolutely refuse. And 2, oh my good God, in the mornings I'd get breakfast and then an Ensure, which are these like little protein drinks, and then I would get a snack with another Ensure and like juice, and then I'd get lunch, and then I'd get an Ensure, and it was continued. Then another snack, Ensure, juice, and then dinner, and then an Ensure. It was so much. It was way too much food for me. Like, one of the biggest things about like especially places that specialize in treating anorexia is you need to be slow. You have to slowly get them back into eating, because my stomach literally didn't know how to digest any of that. It was too much food. I could not physically digest it all. I've seen people that went to good mental hospitals where they could keep their phone, by the way, which I think you should be allowed to do. I think you should be allowed to keep your phone, or at least be able to use it for like a few hours a day, just because it's important to be able to check social media and feel like you're not a prisoner. So that was the thing. Also, they took my phone, they took everything. We weren't allowed to watch TV. We basically sat in a room all day and looked out a window. Really great. But from what I know from like good mental hospitals that specialize in anorexia, they give you smaller portions, and then you slowly work your way up to eating bigger portions, because that's what you're supposed to do. Because if somebody's not eating, then their gut literally is like paralyzed for a bit, because they cannot eat. And I was going through so much. Like, my gut could not handle it at all. And I believe, I'm gonna be honest, I can't remember if this was before or after I got my gallbladder removed. I don't know. I want to say it was after I got it removed, which is why digesting food was even harder for me, if I remember right. The timeline gets really confusing. Like I said, that those years of my life are so traumatic. It just, my brain is like, I don't want to remember. But I'm pretty sure it was afterwards, and I think that was when I had scars. It sucked. It was awful. I remember specifically in the mornings, we would be able to shower, and it was like this really short minute, like, not minute, 5-minute shower, I think 5 to 10 minutes. The water was cold, and a nurse would just stand outside of it and like watch me, which was awkward. Why do not perceive me? Don't look at my naked form. So that was cool. I don't know if other mental hospitals do that, but like, why would you do that? Just stand outside, don't look at me, don't stop. We were allowed to go to the gym. It was, I think after breakfast, we would sit around in this dumb big room with literally nothing to do. We had books, but they sucked, and I don't want to read. And then we would go to the gym and exercise. Woo! But being a chronically ill person, I didn't want to do much. I was exhausted all the time. So usually I would just throw a ball or sit or just exist, which apparently wasn't good enough. One of the biggest things I remember going there that still makes me angry to this day. So at a certain point, I was in so much pain I could barely walk, which is where I am currently, where I have a wheelchair because I can't function properly and I'm in agonizing pain. And this was kind of the predecessor to that, where my body was just getting worse and worse and worse. And the doctor there literally thought I was making it up for attention. He said, nope, you're not getting a wheelchair. You're making it up. It's all in your head. The pain isn't real. And he would just let me limp around. And the other people there, the kids that I was with, noticed, and they would try to help me and waddle me around. It was so painful. Like I said, I don't like to make a scene. I don't like to annoy people. So if it's that bad and I'm actively sitting down and I'm actively asking for help, it's really bad. I probably should have gone to the hospital at that point. So it was one of the most agonizing things, that to the point my brain said, you're not remembering the pain of that. It was terrible. It was just awful. The entire time I was there, I felt like none of the nurses took me seriously. None of them believed me. They honestly could have cared less. And I think that's really bad for a mental hospital. You should have nurses that really, really care for you. The couple of times now that I have been to the normal hospital out here in Oregon, they have treated me with such kindness and such warmth and love, and they're always so sweet to me, and I feel like that is what we need from nurses. You know, I know that nurses are overworked and exhausted, and I completely understand, but sadly, another part of being a nurse is the emotional labor of it. It's not just the physical labor, because if you're being crude and not taking people seriously, whether they're physical or mental pain, that's going to hurt them, and that's going to affect them later on in life. And I wish more nurses would realize that. You need to be able to take people seriously when they are telling you that they're in pain, again, whether that be mentally or physically. I feel like a lot of my experience could have been significantly better if the nurses were just kinder to me and took me seriously. It was a really bad experience, and I would not wish it on literally anybody. If you are having a bad time and you feel like you need to go to a mental hospital, I would recommend just doing the research and finding a good one so you do not have to go through what I went through. It was a very stressful experience. There's a few other tidbits from that experience that were just wild, but this video is getting pretty long, and I feel like I kind of said my piece for the most part. Again, if you're a parent watching this, please, if your kid is going through something very similar, talk to them, sit them down and explain, hey, we want to take you to a mental hospital and we're worried about you. Don't just put them in a car and send them off, because it makes them feel alone and like you don't love them. That's all I could think the entire time, was my family doesn't love me and they just want to send me off to be somebody else's problem. And I know that's not the case now, but as a teenager, that's all I could think. So please listen to your children. Please try your best to be open and let them have a safe space to talk to you about their mental illness and a way so that they can be healthy and grow into a healthy adult. My family didn't really do that, and even now, as an adult, I struggle a lot with being able to express myself, and I am going back to therapy. I'm on a waiting list due to COVID. There's been a lot of people that need to get into therapy, so they are very overworked, but I'm getting back into it, and I gotta work through the trauma of not feeling like if I am open with a therapist, I'm immediately gonna get sent away, because that has kind of crippled me in a way of not being able to express myself fully to therapists. There was a while where like I would go to therapy and I would just joke. I would just want to make the therapist laugh. That was my goal. Even when I go to the hospital now, I'll be in pain and all I want to do is make the nurses laugh. That's it. I just want people to feel happy and good even when I'm in pain. And I don't know what that says about me as a person, but it's something I really gotta work through. Oh, Boise, it's that time at the end of the video where I thank my Patreons. I would like to thank Barry Onyx, Nightmares, Rosemary, Dawn, The Wanderer Raven, and Stroncules, my lovely, amazing $10 tiers. You guys are absolutely stunning. I would love to give a big, wonderful thank you to my $30 patron of Lee. You are absolutely stunning. Thank you so much. And of course, to my $60 patron of Noah, thank you so much. You are absolutely gorgeous, stunning, amazing, never been done before. Thank you so much. You guys have no idea what this means to me. I would love to real quick just say that I made some merch of my comic. I don't know if you've been reading it, but I have been working very hard on it, and there's a big loud thing driving past my window, but I have been working very hard on my comic, and there are links down below, but it has been a ton of fun to work on, and I made just a little bit of merch. It's not much, but I like it, and I think it's really pretty and cool to wear. Here it is. Wow. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. This video has gotten very long. I love you guys so much, and I hope you are having a wonderful evening, day, night, wherever you are around the world. And hey, drink some water. I'll see you next time. Bye!